Last couple of years had been pretty tough for the US tech job market. People have been applying for hundreds, sometimes thousands of jobs without getting any responses back. So in this video, I'm going to show you why it feels almost impossible to get a data science job in today's job market. And most importantly, I will teach you based on my decade of experience working at companies like Meta, Cisco, and Wells Fargo, what precisely you can do to have excellent odds of getting a job even in today's tough job market. So let me start by acknowledging the fact that when we go on LinkedIn and we can see that how many people have applied to different data science jobs, especially for the entry-level roles, we see that there have been hundreds of applications, sometimes even thousands. I've seen LinkedIn jobs with 6,000, 7,000, even 8,000 plus applications. But keep in mind when looking at LinkedIn statistics, for most jobs, when LinkedIn says that some people have applied, it only tracks people and bots who have clicked on the apply button. That doesn't mean that all those people or bots have actually filled in the applications. But still, it's very conservative to think that most entry-level data science jobs, they're getting about 500 plus applications. And as we know that the hiring process is actually like a funnel. So if there are 500 plus applicants in the beginning, then about 5 to 8 of them will be called for interviews. And out of that, only one lucky person would actually get a job. So when you think about it, that out of 500 plus applicants, what are your odds of getting a job, especially when there is just one job available? Well, it doesn't seem much different than buying a lottery ticket, isn't it? And you have to know that the old strategy of just getting some skills and then building some project won't automatically get you hired. It just won't happen because you're competing against such a large pool of applicants. So your strategy is a problem because this simple funnel of knowing some skills like Panda, Scikit-learn, PyTorch, and then building some Kaggle projects actually won't help you get hired, because you just don't have to be like 10% better than the rest of the competition. You have to be remarkably different so that your application actually stands out against the competition. And when we look at this funnel, we see that your odds from these 500 applicants to 5 to 8 interviews is just 1%. And once you get into this pool of applicants who are actually interviewing, then from 5 to 1, it is 20%. So definitely the most difficult part of getting a job is this part, where you get your resume shortlisted by recruiters or hiring managers, that they show enough interest in your profile that they invite you for the actual interview. And even if you are very good at technical skills, if you do not present yourself right in your resume, then you won't get interview calls, and then of course you won't land a job. So in order to get to this level of landing an actual interview, you have to revisit your strategy. I've been a big fan of Charlie Munger's way of thinking. And one thing he used to call a lot is the process of inversion. And what that basically means is that instead of saying, what can help me get a data science job interview, invert the question and say, what would guarantee that I do not get called for data science interviews? Well, there are different ways you can do it. One is very simple, that you just do not apply. The other could be that you have irrelevant resume. These two things will guarantee that you do not get any interview scheduled. Well, beyond that, there are ways in which you can minimize your ways of getting a data science interview. One could be that you just only apply to crowded jobs. These are the jobs which already have a lot of applicants or are expected to get a lot of applicants. And the other one could be that you have a very generic resume which fits in for all kinds of jobs, and it essentially means that the recruiter who is looking at your resume for a specific kind of job tends to ignore it. So these are the things you have to do if you do not want to get an interview scheduled for a data science role. And Charlie Munger says that you should think about things in this way and then invert this. So if we want to get a data science job, we have to do the opposite of all this. We have to apply to a lot of jobs. We have to make sure that our resume is relevant. We have to find jobs which have less competition, and that typically means do not aim for remote roles, especially in the beginning. Do not just apply using LinkedIn's quick apply feature. And then lastly, have a resume which is very customized and tailored for the specific job. And if you do all these 4 things, there is a pretty good likelihood you would start getting some interview schedule. Based on the people I've been mentoring over the last couple of years, usually the baseline response for getting an interview scheduled is 1%. This is for the people who are trying to not make all these mistakes. But if you do a really good job in customizing your resume and then standing out, then you can take it all the way to about 10%, which is the maximum I've seen. So now let's also talk about an important concept of signal versus noise. My undergrad was in telecommunication engineering, and signal to noise ratio was a big concept I've studied in detail in great lengths. But here, the point I'm trying to demonstrate is that hiring does not happen in vacuum. Most of the time, when hiring managers, they post a job in the job market, it happens for a reason. Usually, they're working on a project, there's a business problem which they're trying to solve, and they want to bring in someone who can help them solve that problem. And especially when they're getting hundreds of applications for the one job which they have posted, they can be very selective in what kind of candidate they bring in for interviews. And when they're scanning these resumes, and keep in mind that most hiring managers and recruiters initially spend 5 to 7 seconds per resume. They're trying to ignore all the noise which is there in the resume and only trying to look at what is the signal which tells the hiring manager or the recruiter that this candidate can be a good fit. So let's say if this is the 100% information which is present on the resume, mostly about 95% of that is plain noise. And it is only this last part which can be considered signal. Signal that this candidate can be a good fit for the position they're hiring for. Now, what constitutes noise? Well, all the things which are not signal are basically noise. It includes your name. I'm not saying that you should not put your name on the resume, but I'm saying that when people are glancing over your resume, it doesn't matter if your name is Sam, Bob, Richard, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it also includes a lot of keywords which you have mentioned in your resume. Again, I'm not saying that you should not put them, but when it comes to scannability, they usually get ignored. Everyone has put in pandas, PyTorch, scikit-learn, all these skills. So it doesn't really matter. So most of the things you would have on your generic resume, and also your Kaggle project, Titanic, Iris datasets, etc., all of that constitutes noise. So this is what fills up bulk of your resume. Most hiring managers and recruiters, when they're looking at the resume, they're trying to bypass that information so that they can really find if there is any signal available. And that signal could be relevant experience. For example, if this is a biotech company, try to analyze the patterns for some diseases, then that is the kind of experience they're looking for. And they're also trying to look for people who have demonstrated some ability to create value, because this is what most businesses care. They want to bring in people who are good at creating value, thinking like consultants, not just coders, and they can implement the solutions which can help the business bottom line. So when you are creating your resume or improving it, there are 2 things you should be focusing on. First of all, that is related to the signal. So you should be trying to say, okay, how can I add more of the signal and how can I make it easy to find in the resume in the first 5 to 7 seconds, so that when hiring managers and recruiters are looking at your resume, they are able to find some signal that they come to a conclusion that you should be in those lucky 5 to 8 people who are brought in for the interviews. Now let's break down what does a 3-step playbook looks like for you to maximize the amount of signal in your resume. Well, the best way to create signal is that you have some very good working experience in the field in which you are applying. The kind of jobs which you are applying for, if you already have some demonstrable, impressive experience in the field, that is the absolute best. But in the absence of that, what you can do? Well, this is the 3-step playbook you can use. The first step is finding your niche. And I put in the word train here because Sun Tzu, in his absolute famous book, The Art of War, talked about different terrains and how does that come into picture when you are in a war. And one thing he generally recommends, that instead of meeting the army in an open plain, you should try to find a terrain which best fits your situation so that you could have a competitive edge against your competitors. And this is what niche does for you. You have to find a very good niche based on which you can build some impressive projects so that you could differentiate yourself against hundreds, sometimes thousands of other competitors. And when the hiring manager or the recruiter looks at your resume, in 5 to 7 seconds, they have like this light bulb moment that this is a candidate which we should bring in for the next rounds of interviews. So once you have found your niche, then your next step is to build a project. Now that project does two things. One, it helps you sharpen your skills. And second, if it is a real world project, which is based on some real data and not some pre-made synthetic data sets, then most likely it will help you sharpen your business acumen. And the second thing is much more important than skills, because that is what companies are actually looking for nowadays when they're hiring for data scientists. Because as for those technical skills, AI can do a pretty good job at it even today. In tomorrow, it's going to be even better. But this business acumen is something which AI might not be handled in future as well. So this is where you can bring in most value to the businesses, and businesses know that. That's why they are looking for business acumen and ability to add value in comparison to just having some plain skills. And lastly, then you should go and do some networking around the niche which you have identified, and then the project which you have built. It will help you have some conversations which are more knowledgeable. And usually I think of it as a signal flywheel. And it works like this. First, you have your niche. Let's say that you say that I want to look at e-commerce websites, data or problems. Then the next step is your project. In this case, let's say that you say, I want to see how we can minimize the churn of these e-commerce customers. Usually that leads to networking, because once you have this, then you can reach out on LinkedIn to some small startup CEO who has an e-commerce company and would definitely be dealing with churn problem. And then you reach out to them that I've made this project on this open source but real data set of solving the churn. I've identified these problems. This is what recommendations I've made. I'm curious to see that, do you also have similar kind of problems or no? People are very willing to talk, because that tells them that they might be able to learn something from you, which can help them in their company, in their job. So people are usually willing to have a conversation with you. And once you have that conversation, then definitely you would also learn a lot. And based on that, you can further refine your niche. For example, if the conversation you have is with an e-commerce company who is related to healthcare and does B2B business, then you can further refine your niche according to that. And then you can come up with a new project idea, which is even more tailored to that kind of niche. And now your assumptions are much more grounded in reality, because you actually had a conversation with someone who had gone through that problem. And then you further network by reaching out to more people who have done something in that field. So if you have time, this is a much more fun, engaging, and a fruitful way to learn data science, because now rather than just learning some SQL commands and pandas commands, etc., which AI can write anyway, you are not only building a project, you're not only building a network and getting more referrals, you're also having an understanding of the niche. And all these things, when you put on your resume, that really helps you stand out your resume against the competition. A quick story I wanted to share here. There was a person I was mentoring, and that person had applied to hundreds of applications. There was absolutely zero responses. And when I had a conversation with him and trying to see that what kind of projects has been building, he was mainly working on some toy Kaggle data sets. So I started having conversations with him that what kind of actual data set he can work with. It turns out that his family owned a small trucking company, and of course they had some data they were collecting, and there were a lot of business problems to be solved, because every business has problems. And most of the problems in today's day and age can be solved with the help of data. And that is what data scientists do. So I brainstormed with him, and we came to a conclusion that he can work on optimizing the fuel purchasing problem for their business. And that led to $15,000 per year of savings. Now that became a big win, which he started putting in his resume. And also it helped him establish his niche, which was around logistical companies. And he started having some reach outs and some network conversations, which led him to actually landing a job in a local logistic company. So now you can see that how this approach is remarkably different than just having a generic resume, which talks about these are the skills you claim to know, and then you have some toy data set, which you have got some Kaggle, and then you are applying for hundreds, sometimes thousands of jobs, and you get the same 0 replies. So the common pitfalls or mistakes I've seen people make, which have relatively easy fixes, is that one, you have generic Kaggle portfolio, and second, you are a generic data scientist. So try to solve some unique, messy problem and try to become a specialized data scientist who has expertise around a niche. It could be some sort of technical expertise, like I just work on NLP, or it could be a business domain, for example, healthcare, e-commerce, etc. So if this so far makes sense, I want to quickly leave with you a 7-day actual execution plan so that you just don't listen to this video and then go to the next one without actually doing anything, because the only way information becomes valuable is when you act on it. So this is your 7-day action plan. First is that you brainstorm your niche. If you already do not have a working experience or clearly defined niche, then this is the first thing you should be doing. Take 1 to 2 days, think about it. What are the past experiences? What are the past projects which you have made? What are the things which actually excite you and you're interested in solving? Talk with other people who have been working in different domains. They do not have to be a data scientist or data people. Any mentor who's working in any industry, banking, healthcare, e-commerce, retail, whatever, try to see what kind of problems their business or niche have and how that can be solved with the help of data. Once you have defined your niche, then the second step is finding some messy real data. Usually, if it is the real data, then there is a big chance that it will be a messy data because only toy data sets come clean and ready to be analyzed. So see if you can find some good data sets. Spend 1 to 2 days on it. This is very important. And bonus points if you can find different data sources, which then can be combined to create one data set which is valuable. For example, if you're trying to work on B2B customer churn, then you can use some other data sources to enrich the information for each of the customer you have. So if you can bring in different real world data sets to enrich each other, then that becomes a very messy but very valuable data set which you can then further analyze. And then lastly, draft a 1-page project proposal. And I'm forcing you to create 1 page so that you have absolute clarity on what is the business value of it and what is the problem it can solve. Instead of having a 27-page technical design document which no one cares about, try to see that what kind of 1-page project proposal you can come up with. Extensively use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or any LLM of your choice. Please try to create something which has actual business significance. And if you can distill the highlights of that project onto 1 page and it looks impressive to you and other people you show it to, then maybe it's a good time to implement it. And again, skills are dirt cheap now because AI can solve most of the problems. If you give that 1-page project proposal and the dataset to Google Gemini or ChatGPT, most likely it can write the code for you. So that is actually becoming an easy part now. The hard part is that how do you think like a business owner? How do you think like a consultant so that you can actually help solve business problems? Lastly, if you are worried about that your technical skill set is still not very sharp enough to be able to implement these technical details, then I have created a very short free data science roadmap which you can use to learn the 20% of the skill set which are used 80% of the time in actual jobs. And I think that is the fastest way to learn just enough so that you are in a position to start implementing. I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching.